You can add a secondary color correction layer to any clip inside SpeedGrade. The secondary color correction layer works a lot like the secondary color correction tools inside the three-way color corrector and RGB curves effects inside Premiere Pro. It has some pluses and some minuses. So to see how the secondary color correction layer works inside SpeedGrade, just start up SpeedGrade, click on Open Project, go on down here to SG Secondary Layer, and click on Open. We're going to work on the same two clips that I used when I demonstrated the secondary color correction tools inside Premiere Pro, this building, and then this coastline shot. We'll go back to the building here. To access the secondary color correction tools, you need to add a secondary color correction layer. And you do that at the bottom of the layer stack, that little +S. And if you saw the lesson on secondary color correction in Premiere Pro, this looks sort of familiar. Let me just scroll this up a bit so you can see it all. I'm going to expand the view here so you can see everything across the way there. You use the secondary color correction layer to select a region within the clip based on the hue, lightness, and saturation of that region that you select. And you start things off by using an eyedropper tool to select an area or one of these presets here. I clicked on this blue. I would set a blue preset, and that would be primarily the sky. But I'm going to undo that by clicking this little X here and starting over again. So just to see how this works, we're going to select the sky, and then later we're going to select the building. So to select the sky, I click on this little eyedropper with a plus next to it like that. And if we were doing this thing inside Premiere Pro, we'd go up here and we'd click once, and then watch what happens to these things down here. Click there, and there you go. We've selected the hue, which is kind of blue, and the lightness there, and the saturation. But they're all very narrow, but still we have selected something. So to see what we've selected, we then need to see the mask. And the mask is accessible over here under Gray Out. I click this drop-down list, and I have three choices here. I've got color gray, color black, and white black. Now, white black is what we're used to inside Premiere Pro. The white is the stuff we've selected, and the black is everything else. What we selected here, if we made a change, would affect only that stuff. I really like color black. Let me show you that. Color black shows black, which is what you haven't selected, but also the actual color of the thing you've picked, which is kind of neat. Color gray is very similar, but kind of muddy for me. I prefer the color black. Now I want to expand that view. And if this were Premiere Pro, I'd go down to the eyedropper tool and click on it. And this thing would turn into the regular scene, and I can go back and work on it. But it doesn't automatically do that here inside SpeedGrade. So you've got to go back over here and click this drop-down arrow, and go back to None, and then add to your selection again. Your initial selection can be done better, and that's one of the cool things about this tool. The eyedropper here is not just a one-point eyedropper. You can drag it around and select more than just that one point. So I'm going to start over again by just clicking this little X here to get things back to neutral. Click on the eyedropper tool, and now I'm going to drag it around inside here and pick up all the blue there that I can, and watch how those little sliders get just a little bit larger as I go around here. Just a little bit wider. Now this will be a better selection, so I'll go down to the gray out list here, click on the drop-down list, and click on color black. Now we can refine that by going down here and working with these sliders here. Now the sliders have three controls. The one on the top controls the width of the slider, the one on the bottom controls the fall off, and the white is the location, the center of it. So I'm going to expand the width here by dragging the one on the top there, like so. Then I can take this middle thing and slide it left or right, and notice how we're going to lose the blue here. That's about right there. Then the fall off makes it a little more gradual. Let's see if we can kind of pick up a few more things there in the trees. The same routine down here for lightness. We can move the whole thing around by grabbing the white thing and dragging it left and right. Obviously that's the right spot there to begin with. You can expand it by grabbing that top triangle, getting a little bit more there, or picking up a few odds and ends down here. And then there's the fall off again, which can fine tune this. Now saturation can be a bit of a problem, but here there wasn't that much, and so it's not that wide. But sometimes it gets really wide and unruly, and I'll show you that when we work on the building. Like that. We're going to expand a little bit here, pick up some more. See how the blue's coming in down here? Now this is the area that we're going to work on here. I can turn off that mask now by going back up here and clicking None. So any change we make will be made to that area that's selected, and everything else will be masked out, basically. So we have fewer controls here than you'd expect to see. Back on the primary side, we have 12 color wheels in these 4 different sections here, 3 per section. Over in the secondary side, we have only these 2. Offset, meaning the whole value up and down, and gain, which is the highlights end of things. We do have some sliders on top, but basically these 2 sliders match what goes on inside the gains end of things. There's also a contrast control, which works sort of like gamma, but we'll take a look at these 2 guys here. So let's pull this down a bit. I want to, let's say, make the blue sky deeper by taking the offset and pulling it down. We can pull it toward blue like so. Hold down the shift key to make it more dramatic. So you can see how that works. We selected the blue and then worked on the blue specifically, and nothing else got touched. I'm going to reset everything here and work on the building. So I'm going to go over here to the secondary layer and click on Reset. And that just kicks everything back to neutral. Take my eyedropper tool here. I'm going to drag around the building here for a second and notice what happens down here. In particular, notice what happens to saturation. I'll drag down the building and saturation just jumps out all the way across there. I think it's more like brightness than it is like saturation, but in any event, it's just how saturated the color is, and it's fully saturated there, as you can see. We selected a hue there, and we selected lightness there. All right, let's work on the hue and lightness, and we'll get to saturation last. Let's take a look at the hue first, and we'll go to this drop-down list to see how we're doing. We'll take color black, and it's more than we want. We want to narrow it down. We don't want all this stuff kind of in the selection there. So I'm going to take hue and make the fall off a little bit off to one side like that, and narrow this down a bit. Let's just adjust the position a little bit, see if that makes a difference. Something like that. But we have more stuff than we want here. I think we can affect this more when we move over to lightness. So I'm going to go down to lightness, add a little fall off to that so we can be more subtle about it. Narrow it down a bit there. Narrow it down some more so we can take out some of the extraneous stuff around the edges there. And now I think we're getting down to a pretty good selection. Now I've selected that part of the building. We'll turn off the mask so we can get to work on it. I want to make the yellow deeper. I'll start off by just dragging this to the left to darken it up a bit like that. Maybe pull up toward orange by holding down the shift key and dragging up that little plus sign. I can do the same thing with the highlights. I can expand it a little bit like that. Let's move on down to the next clip here. We'll try to work on the sky here. And you'll see the process again. I'll go down here, click on the plus S. Pull this up so you can see everything. Grab the eyedropper tool, and I'm going to drag all around there. And watch the sliders as they expand here. I'll click there. Start moving around a bit. Taking more region in there. There goes saturation, filling up the whole thing again. Now I've selected all that color. And let's see what I ended up selecting. Go down here to the color black. Got a lot of the ocean here, which I don't want to have. But I think we can narrow things down and get rid of that by adjusting these guys. So I'm going to slide to left and right like that. Drag this to the right. I think we can get saturation actually to help us out here. I think the color needs to be narrowed to be able to take the ocean out of there. So I'm going to narrow this down a bit and see what happens there to kind of get rid of the ocean without losing too much of the sky. So it's a little tricky to pick out the sky and not pick out the ocean because obviously the ocean is picking up color from the sky too in terms of the foam there. But now we've done a pretty good job of selecting the sky. But we've got some funny little edges here that may be a problem, which we can fix to a certain degree with the denoise and the blur. Let's turn off the mask here and go back to the normal view like so. Now I want to adjust the color of the sky. We'll make it a little bit darker. And you're going to notice we've got those little hard edges there that were caused by the fact that we couldn't get the mask to go to the edge. We'll expand it a bit like that. That kind of takes care of some of it. Now I want to pull a little bit toward orange just to kind of warm it up a bit there. Like something like that. And you see there are some edges there. We can try to blur it a bit by taking this controller down there and dragging it to the right. Once I start dragging, hold on the shift key. And that'll kind of soften the edges a little bit like that. And the same thing with denoise. It has a similar effect. So we have some problems there, I think, but that's not so terribly obvious. But at any rate, that is the process. You select an area based on the hue, lightness, and saturation. You fine-tune it using these controls down here. And then you make changes to it using the tonality and color controls here inside the secondary layer.